Hey,
Hey,
um, so I think we are ready to get started whenever you are, Kelly.
yeah, absolutely. I wasn't sure if there was anything I needed to do to let that happen or.
No, I think we're good. So I'll just quick introduce myself and then get back out of the way. My name is James. I'm one of the co-founders of Trellis Tools. We're a software startup that helps people better manage their operations, which is what the subject of this session is about. Kelly is kind of our subject matter expert on the idea of scalable and structured operations. And so I'm going to bow out now and turn it over to him.
Great. Thank you, James. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you choosing and taking the time out of your day to hear what we have to say about structured operations. So I think with the interest of time here, I think we'll dive right in and get moving along here. So I'm going to go ahead and share here. That's great. As a startup founder, a large portion of your success depends on your ability to move quickly, wear many hats, and be nimble. But being nimble doesn't mean you have to be disorganized. In this session, we'll show how taking a structured approach to the day-to-day operations of your business can maximize your growth. I feel the most significant assets of any organization are clarity, confidence, and trust. We believe clarity about your organization's purpose and vision, confidence in your organization's ability to deliver on its promise, and trust between your leaders and the frontline workforce. So what is an organization? That term is thrown around about quite a bit. We've boiled it down to it's basically a collection of people executing functions, fulfilling a shared purpose. We talk a lot about what structured operations is, and our definition is really the requisite defining coordination and execution of work in the organization. So in order to progress through, we feel like you have to build an organization. A developing organization will pass through distinct phases as it evolves. The requisite phases are proof of concept, build your organization, and then eventually getting to where you're into smooth scaling. During proof of concept, the vision is clarified. You're working through and developing your product and service development. You're probably at that point enjoying some level of success and ultimately fulfilling on the promises you're starting to make to your clients and customers. But you are mostly limited by the capacity of the founders or those that are involved initially. So the question at that point becomes, can you build the requisite organization to move your organization forward? Building the organization includes developing the organizational structure, which is the division of work, starting to develop specialized roles, creating teams, further developing and fine-tuning your products and services. And at that point, you're typically going to be seeing some complexity in your decision making. And that really moves to the next phase and needs to answer the question, is leadership in your organization equipped to manage the complexities of real scale at that point? Once you're able to develop that leadership, you'll get into that smooth scaling aspects as you develop that trusted leadership. You have clarity in your products and services. You, at that point, should have very matured systems and have trusted data relied on and a clear strategy. And at this point, we would feel that you're really then able to aggressively promote what you do or your product. So we've really taken the structured operations approach down to 3 different components. There's structure, oversight, and strategy. Building your organization is about manifesting to a vision. Structure includes the breakdown of the building blocks. This is ultimately how you would divide and conquer. The primary division is one side creating some supply and the other side creating demand. And in the middle, you're going to have alignment between those two. The oversight component is someone, or the visionary typically, keeping an eye on the long-term vision, where you have, we call integrator, we're using that from the traction world, as the integrator would oversee across the organization and ultimately through time, which is the strategy component. When we look at strategy, we want to see where's the organization functioning now, where will it be next, and how will it be into the future later towards the ultimate realization of the vision. At the now point, we're looking at and wanting to inventory what we have for resources. We want to look at creating a detailed plan that brings us to the next point. That's usually within a year. And then the later component is more general, but it's the vision ultimately. We feel that moving towards a vision is a great satisfaction in life. And it's really the visionary and the integrator who will take the members of their organization through onto that journey. We've looked at structured operations and taken those 3 primary components of structure, oversight, and strategy and created 9 requirements that fit into those components. The first requirement as part of the structure component is vision. What the organization will look like when it's fully executing its purpose. Vision is based on purpose, which is based on a core belief. This also includes what the core values are and the shared priorities. We've also decided to include vision should be part of the org chart, as it's the organization of work. It's the model of what the organization will ultimately look like. The second requirement in structure is workflow. Workflow is the breakdown of work as we organize it into the org chart. We call the primary unit of work a task. As tasks are executed, they roll up in towards the ultimate fulfillment of the vision. The third requirement in structure are roles. Roles are the assignment of work and responsibilities within the organization. As we move on to oversight, the first requirement within oversight is leadership. Leadership is the hierarchy of inspiration, education, and support. Basically, we ask that those leaders care for those who are working towards their vision. The second component is validation. Validation is the analytical assessment of progress. What are the factual results of the tasks being executed? Are projected expectations being met? Are we on the right path? Traction is the third component. This is where we are holding people accountable. Are the teams and individuals meeting expectations? We all need oversight, even the business owners and leaders. The requirements in the third component of strategy are starting with goals. What is our path? Are we on the right path? Goals are calculated and they're not arbitrary. They're based on a breakdown of the vision. We then would look at constraints. Constraints are the limiting factors in that current moment. And they do change as the organization evolves. The third requirement is iterations, which is basically how the organization evolves as a whole across the organization. Iterations means to apply the limited resources that the organization has at any given time. So how do we then implement this structured operations? Our first step is to take an inventory. We usually would work with the visionary in updating or affirming the vision, updating or creating the org chart, and then documenting workflows. Step 2 in structured operations implementation would be to evaluate performance. This is the quantitative aspect. We're trying to get and determine useful KPIs throughout the organization and identify baselines for each KPI. The third step is to evolve the organization. This is where we would create rocks as projects. Are you still there, James?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I just haven't had any feedback on anything. It's just kind of weird.
Okay.
All right. So basically, with evolve the organization, we want to, like we said, take those goals and determine the constraints and bring those together and create rocks. So ultimately, structured operations provides an operations and management framework for continued evolution. One of the critical components of structured operations is to create a single source of truth. The results that we would want to see with structured operations is clarity in where the organization stands today, a leadership and managerial framework that engages, unites, and empowers, and a plan to evolve the organization to its vision. If there are traction people out there, they would appreciate the terms visionary and integrator. We have adopted that in a lot of what we're doing as well. The visionary role is about why here, why now, what's the future? And they're ultimately there to support the integrator. In the integrator role, they're overseeing all of the implementation of structured operations, from defining the structure, creating oversight, and developing the strategy. They're also there to support the visionary. So the question we ask is, what do you want to build? What kind of organization do you feel you'll need for you to go beyond the proof of concept phase as a startup and into a legitimate, fully functioning organization delivering on its promise? So Trellis Tools is where we're functioning to create that single source of truth product. And Aligned Operations is more of the training sister company to Trellis Tools. We provide training and integrator placement as well. So that's what I had to present today. If we have any questions.
All right, yeah, thank you, Kelly. If you have any questions, feel free to either put it in the chat or just request to share your video if you'd like to do it that way. Either way, we've got about 10-ish minutes, so hopefully feel free to share anything you might have. Well, I guess I can start off by guiding a question. So Kelly, what would you say would be sort of, let's suppose that you've got people who I don't know what their what the sort of general makeup are of the people watching, but suppose you're just starting out, it's just you, this might feel like a lot to implement. What might be sort of a first steps to be like, okay, how do I start thinking in a structured operations mindset to help myself without having to go all in on everything?
With anything, our recommendation in starting is always take an inventory. That's a good opportunity to evaluate where you're at today. And that would include either creating or affirming your vision based on a purpose, based on a guiding belief. Are you there for the right reasons? Then the second is to start creating that task inventory to really start defining what is the requisite work that is necessary for the organization to really move to its next step. So I always say, start where you stand, take an inventory of your resources, clarify your purpose, and then start creating iterations based on that.
All right. Thanks. So we've got a question from Dennis. He's asking, is it best to start thinking of scaling after the proof of concept phase is completed?
Definitely, I would want to have some comfort or confidence in your ability to deliver on your promise, whatever your product or service is. That would, we've been doing proof of concept aligned operations now for 10 years. So it can differ from organization to organization depending on the complexities or where you're at as an individual in creating your product or service and then ultimately building on your organization. So I always think it's best to get your confidence in your product slow first and then ramp it up. Once you then build that organization that can support, then you can turn it up and really promote and grow. Our philosophy is always to grow your demand into your capacity. So you should always be ahead of it that way.
Can you see the chat right now, Kelly?
I can, yeah.
Okay, great. I won't have to relay everything.
We as part of our annual strategic planning process, we redo that same process in a more of an audit form than we do in creation. If it's a new company or startup, we're using the language of create when it comes to vision building and creating your task inventory. Subsequent years, we're doing it more of a language of audit and modify. So yeah, it's something that we do over and over again. Any others? I think that's. Anything else, James, you want to?
Let's see.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think is there anything I feel like would be good for us to further clarify or expand upon. I guess I'll share a little bit more of my perspective. So I've come at this from the technical side. I'm a software developer by trade, and so it's been interesting for me to sort of get into this world of sort of operations management, structured operations and such, and seeing how really focusing on basic principles can really drive yourself forward and provide clarity in a situation where, there's maybe a lot of complexity. There's, especially when you're just sort of starting out doing small bootstrap stuff, which is what we've been doing, with Trellis Tools, you have to wear a lot of hats, and figuring out, okay, how do I manage this, can be a lot. And so I think from my perspective, it's been interesting to see how just bring it down. It's like, okay, how can we add, structure, oversight, and strategy to how we operate, and just starting as simply as that. And then as you grow, you have, you can get deeper into these and
Mhm.
find what works for you. I think is the one of the big takeaways for me is that
All right. Well, I would say if anyone's interested, they can contact us via email directly or through the TrellisTools.com website, or else alignedoperations.com. Again, Trellis Tools is our software solution. Aligned Operations is more focused on training and placement for those organizations that are looking to maybe bring in some integrator help. So.
all right. Well,
All right.
I think we might as well let people have their last 6 minutes back before what they want to do next. So thank you all for attending, and have a good rest of your founder track day.
Thanks, James.
All right.